Hi everyone, this is Alexander Zeitlin with the Lockdown Lecture Series for Intermediate Violin, uh, adapted from the Alias Music Foundations course for the classroom setting. Let's jump into Lesson 6. So last week we took a look at the music that you guys learned for this and basically found that there's one more intermediate step from what we've been working on, because if we just use our normal process of learn the notes, work it up with the metronome, memorize it, we're not going to be able to hit those really high speeds that you hear in the recordings. So we took a look at the rhythms reverse method, which we use to build up strength. And what I'd like to do to start with you guys is I'm going to play through it at a moderate tempo, 8 notes per bow. I'm going to do the whole thing, all 4 sections, and you guys can just kind of play along to see how it's going. I'll do the first rhythm and then the reverse rhythm, and let's give it a go. So here we go. All right, from the top, 3, 4. We're going to skip the 2 chords for now because we're just doing the drilling. And here comes the reverse rhythm. So you guys can play along and practice together here. There we go. So that's approximately the speeds you guys should be hitting drilling. You might be a little bit slower when you're doing 4 on a bow, but then you should do 8 on a bow, and then also marcato separate bow rhythms too. So basically your assignment as we continue through, because this is the first piece that kind of like will take several lessons for you guys to really get fully, is to now start alternating 1 day of practice with rhythms. Let's say on 1 day you get to it and just drill at rhythms, 4 on a bow, 8 on a bow, marcato rhythms, and that's it. You don't have to do anything else. Don't play through it. Just drill the rhythms. Then the next day, you're going to do a metronome workup just to kind of see how the metronome workup's going. So let me pull up my metronome here. I'm going to bump it up to 80 now, because 60 for you guys should be kind of on the easy side after all these rhythms work. And this is what 80 will sound like. And so on, right? So I'm just going to bump it up to 90. This is where the metronome workup really comes in handy, because we as human beings are really bad at making tiny incremental adjustments. It's like if I ask someone to play a little bit faster, they're going to play like twice the speed. So that's not a little bit faster at all. Here's 90. And so on, right? If I bump it up to 100, it's going to sound like this. And so on. And you guys should be shooting for 120. Like that is a really good, like if as an intermediate player, you can do passage work with 16th notes, a quarter note equals 120. You're in a really good spot. Here's what that would sound like. And so on, right? So when you're doing your metronome workup now, and you know, as in the past, the last couple of movements we've worked on the metronome primarily just to make sure you're playing the exact rhythm. Now we're actually using the metronome workup as a technical exercise to improve the technical quality of our playing. You know, this is a little bit different now. As you're every time, like when you're increasing the tempo, my recommendation is don't try to force the tempo. Like don't try to play faster. If you think, okay, I've got to keep up now, you're going to immediately with your hand, you're going to start working and you're going to make large motions, which is going to slow you down. You're going to try and, you know, essentially create tension in your left hand, which is going to slow you down even more. Think lighter. Think, you know, instead of like making it go faster, just think to lighten up your fingers and it's going to start going on its own. You can focus on keeping them even, because that's the other part of playing faster that most of us have a problem with. Playing faster is just moving your fingers faster is fine, but you have to also be able to do it in control and play evenly. So one last thing that I forgot to mention in the last lecture that I did for the violas and cellos, but I missed on the violins, is how to practice chords. That's actually has its own practice technique. So for that, what we do is we take the chord and we split it, bottom two, top two, and that's actually how we play all chords on string instruments, because for the most part, we can't actually play a 4-note chord. The composers assume that we're going to break the chord and split it in half. And so if I have a 3-note chord or a 4-note chord, let's say I have a 4-note chord, the way I practice it is I take the bottom two and the top two, but I split, I actually make a pause so that I can practice getting good clean sound on the base of my chord and then also good clean sound on the top. Now in the bottom half, I will get big sound anyway because it's near the frog, the heavy part of the bow. And in the top half, I will have light sound, so I need more bow. So if I want to weigh the chord evenly, I want to use a lot less bow in the bottom and a lot more bow on the top. It's going to look like this. And I will repeat it until I really have the balance right. And then I simply take away the break. And that's my chord. So when I get to the chord at the end, and I finish the rest of the passage, I get two really nice and even sounding chords because I've drilled my chords that way. So that's how you practice chords. All right, so we've talked about how to drill with rhythms. We have talked about how to kind of work up with the metronome. Let's introduce the 7th movement, and I'll give you guys your new material homework assignment for the week. This is the 7th movement, and you'll notice it looks a lot like the 6th movement, a lot of 16th notes. Only difference is there's no slurs, and that is a completely different deal. It's one thing when the left hand has to move fast, and then when the right hand has to move fast, and they have to do it at the same time, instead of it's in very fast tempos. That becomes a big challenge. So we will have special drilling techniques to deal with that. But for now, you guys just get to learn the notes. I'm just going to give you a couple pointers about the sections here. So like here's section A1. A1 is fine. There's nothing in particular to worry about section A1. Here's section A2. Now for section A2, you'll notice there is this shift marking right here. And essentially, what we want to do is we want to shift up onto the A string up here. And so to do that, we have to get from this note, the E flat note right before it, which is right here, that one, to this B flat, but we want to do it up on the A string. Now that's quite a jump. And we also kind of want to show the slide a little bit. So we're going to take a look at how to deal with practicing shifts. So you actually guys do get a new practice technique today. Let me hop back over here. So anytime I have two notes and one note, another note, and you know I can play each one. I can like find the bottom note and then the top note. But the problem is like what happens between them. It's getting from one to the other. That's the real challenge. That's a terrible question mark. Essentially, I need to figure out how the transition works. But because I'm playing one note and then my bow stops and then I move to the next one, essentially I transition in silence, more or less. And we want to hear it. We want to hear what is going on in here. So what I'm going to do is instead, I'm going to repeat the bottom note twice. And then I'm going to play the top note twice. And I'm just going to slur or legato these two notes. Now, because the transition is being voiced, essentially I can hear it, I can now hear what this is. And this technique is called repeat connect. So I will jot that down here. So this is basically how we practice shifts. I can take any passage that has a lot of shifts, something like this. And I just shift it up to third position, back to first, and I play each note twice, but I'm going to slur the connecting notes. So now I can hear like what happened in that shift. Now if I have a particularly difficult shift, like here, this is quite the shift, I'm going to just do that over and over. So I will play the bottom E flat twice, but I'm going to slur, and then I'm just going to go back down. And this way I can really hear the distance of the shift. Again, it sounds like this. So this is how to practice a really difficult shift. We will have like one or two more in this series of pieces, but anytime you come across a hard shift, that's how you practice it. So I'm just going to mark a star here because this that was hard to draw. Draw with a mouse. I've changed my mouse since last lecture. I have to get used to this one. We have a harmonic here, which we all should know how to do. And again, the specifics of how to shift, the technique of like exactly which finger you shift to and why, that I'm not going to get into in this lecture series. That is a question for your private teacher. Here we go. So this harmonic is notated a little bit unusually in this edition, but basically to play it, you guys know that, for example, in this harmonic, you play it on the A string, and you play it right in the middle of the string. This string harmonic is played on the E string, in what's known as the second partial position or the quarter partial position. And it's actually played like on that note. It would be notated normally as like a diamond head note on that E3 position. So in other words, instead of playing it up here or here, you're going to play it down here. And oh, you know what? I'm actually that is incorrect. I gave that to you incorrectly. Is the correct position, but now that I look here, this is supposed to be on the A string in that same partial, so not on the E string. So you're not going to play it. You're not going to play it in the middle of the A string like this. You're going to play it down here. So the same place you would put down A3, just make a harmonic position with your finger. So it ends up sounding like this. And then you would go on. So the same thing's you're gonna do the same thing here. This is gonna be that same position on the E string and then on the A string. Just for these two notes right here, okay? And then this chord is in third position, and that's the A4 section, and that's it, that's the whole movement. So your job is the usual. Learn the notes, learn the rhythm and bowing, work on it with the metronome at a slow speed. Your practice speed for this should be something like quarter note equals 50. That's a good starting speed for this one. Maybe 60 is fine also. All right, everyone, that's your assignment to learn the 7th movement. If you have the down with metronome, you can also memorize it. To continue drilling and alternating rhythms and metronome work on the 6th movement, and then just continue to review your first 2 movements. I will see you guys at the next lecture.